This is the most important part about the whole thing. Oh my God. I'm supposed to click something here.
You hit the mute, the agenda. The mute.
Can you show me?
The
not-
speaker,
Where?
this little speaker icon, you click on that,
This one?
yeah.
So now we're gonna get back. So now we're muted.
Yes, and then you can go down to your Zoom,
This one?
the next, to the right.
This one.
Left.
Thank you.
That's it.
So there was a little tab. I don't see it here.
Oh, yeah, just
This one? Okay. Okay. Always something new. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, 6:02. This is a joint meeting of the Facility Committee and the Board of Directors of the South Thomaston Library and Community Center Auxiliary. I have a couple of adjustments to the agenda. The first one is, I don't think we ever voted on Jan being a co-chair, and I'm delighted to tell you that Jan has agreed to be the co-chair. So I'd first like to have a motion to elect Jan as our co-chair.
Yeah, before we do that, well, I guess we'll have the discussion, I'm sorry.
Is this okay?
who made the motion? You seconded it. You made the motion to.
Yeah. Okay, and all those in favor?
For discussion. You don't get
Vote for everything, vote early, vote often. So thank you, Jan, for agreeing.
Well, thanks. I mean, I was gonna say under the discussion, Sandy asked me if I would co-chair and I told her, I said I would, but I really wanted the concurrence of the committee before I did that. So I appreciate your concurrence, obviously, and your support. I'm glad to be part of it. So
Well, thank you.
thanks.
So I'm going to move number 3, public comment and approval of the minutes down to right before old business so that we can get to number 5, which is the introduction of all of our committees to one another, because we are 2 different groups right now, and I'm going to turn it over first to John.
Okay, my name's John Spear. I'm on the Board of Selectmen, and I'm also president of the nonprofit corporation. And I think I'd just like to take a couple of moments to make sure everybody understands that we have 2 different groups here. We are missing a member at the moment.
And we are too.
Yeah, Sherry Dasco, who was supposed to be here, but I don't see her now. That's okay. We'll just move on without her. But I would ask the other 4 members of the Board of Directors of the corporation to introduce themselves, starting over here.
Name's Herb Curtis, South Thompson resident.
Barbara Wright, St. Thomas resident.
And Barbara's also our treasurer.
Sandy Wiseman, and I'm going to go back to you too and ask you why this is an important role for you to play. It's an important role for me to play because after all the research that was done on this project early on, I feel very committed to the idea that a new building in town is extremely important for the future, for now and for the future. Maybe you could say what's important to you about being.
Oh, I've been in favor of new buildings for 4 or 5 years. That's the only way we should strongly be looking at. You know, and that's all I really have to say.
That's great.
I agree. I've had the unfortunate experience in my past life to try to rehab an old building. And immediately after we spent millions of dollars on rehabbing, all kinds of things went wrong, and we added another couple of million, for which we could have built an entirely new building. So I'm not gonna make that mistake again.
And our newest member is,
Rhonda Nordstrom, South Thompson resident, of course, Rockledge Road. I think that it's been proven that the town needs and wants a community center. And I think it's important that we go forward with a new green, sustainable building that will take us into for generations to come. So I'm really happy to try to work on raising funds to move it forward.
and as I said, I'm John Spear. I'm on the select board. The bylaws of the private nonprofit corporation require that one member of the select board serve on this board of directors. And I am the one that I didn't volunteer, but I was chosen, and I did volunteer after the first two said that they couldn't do it, so. But anyways, I do want to take a split second, or just a couple moments, and explain that the South Thomaston Library and Community Center Auxiliary is a private nonprofit corporation incorporated under the state of Maine. It is not part of the town. It is a separate legal entity. It is linked to the town through the bylaws in 3 or 4 ways. And obviously its purpose is to support a town project or function, which we can talk a little bit more about the purpose later. But it is a separate legal entity, and I think that's important to understand, that it's not part of the town. It was created pursuant to a vote of town meeting. But once it was created, it became its own thing, so to speak, legal entity. Sherry Dasco, who is not here, is our secretary. And she's, and we still have 1 vacancy. So and I did want to read you, we do have a set of bylaws that were approved by that town meeting vote and then were adopted by the board at its first meeting. I want to read to you just very briefly. And the purpose of the corporation. The corporation has been formed under the Maine Nonprofit Corporation Act. I'll spare you the legal sites. And is organized and at all times shall be operated exclusively for charitable and educational purposes within the meaning of section 501(c)(3) of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, or successor corresponding provisions of federal tax law, including without limiting the foregoing. The purpose is to encourage public support and solicit funding to aid the town of South Thomaston's efforts to plan for and construct a library and community center at the site of the former Guilford Butler School in said town. And you'll notice it refers to a 501(c)(3) that's comes from the federal tax code. We are not currently a 501(c)(3). We are seeking that designation from the IRS basically as we speak, but we do not have that yet. I think that's all I wanted to say at this point. I just wanted to emphasize the point that we're a separate legal private nonprofit corporation, as opposed to the facilities committee, which is a committee of the town and is part of the town, like the planning board would be, or the select board would be, or whatever. So do you want to talk a little bit about the
Sure.
facilities?
So the facilities committee was begun after the 2021 town meeting and was voted on by the town to establish this committee to look into planning, designing and building a new building. So that has been our thrust for the last 2 years. We have, we did a survey first. We then worked on, well, the biggest latest thing has been the design schedule that took us through this past year. Have a list of things we did, but I don't have them in front of me. And in any case, we meet once a month, pretty regularly, and are focused on how we can help not to, this is the fundraising group over here, but what we need to do to help the fundraising happen, how we can move that forward through grant committees, through research, through working with citizens to build a support system. Right now, the work that we're doing is feasibility of the project in terms of town support and donors. And that will go on probably for several months. We are working on developing the right kinds of presentation materials for going to citizens groups, which we will also be doing in the new year, to build the right kind of support, and what other things we do need to do by getting other citizens to help on some of those committees. So that's where we're at right now. And I'd like everybody on our committee to introduce themselves and maybe have a sentence about why you think the work of the project is very important to you. And I'll start with you, Jim.
Okay, well, I'm Jan Gaudio, newly elected co-chair. I have a bit of history with this whole process because I was a selectman when we put a group together that studied the future of Guilford Butler and what we were going to do with it. I do think that the return of that land to South Thomaston provides the town with a really unique opportunity. And we have this opportunity to build a modern and energy efficient and green purpose-built building for a library and community center that should serve this town for 50 plus years again, if we do it right. I think it's unique that we have this opportunity because specifically we have this land available, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't seize this opportunity and do the right thing for the long-term betterment of the community. So I'm excited about it. And I think it's going to be a tough process. It's not going to be easy, but I look around at other communities of similar size and see what they've been able to do with fundraising and grants and so on to build some very, very nice facilities that I think the town and the town people will be very proud of and pleased to be part of. Anyway, maybe longer than I needed to say. Okay.
Or one sentence. I'm Kate Clark. I'm a new resident of South Thomaston. I think this is my third year living in town. And as I was looking around for something to do to give back to the community and meet people, I came on this facility needing help. And in my career as an educator for 40 years, I have a lot of experience living with old school buildings, renovating old school buildings, and building new school buildings. And so I thought that might be helpful to this committee. And as I've gotten to know everybody and learn more about the history of the committee now for the last 6 months or however long it's been, I have jumped right on the bandwagon. I do believe we need a new green, safe, thought out building for the community, and I really do think there'd be great value to that.
I'm Catherine Lamb. I live on Dublin Road, and I moved to town in March of 2017. And what I really am looking for is obviously a green building. I'm very conscious about the environment, and I think we all ought to do something about it. And a community building is a way that everybody can do something about it. But I really am looking for a community center where there is enough room for everybody to get together. And I do believe that when people get together, they get to talk and understand one another and have a good time, and everything gets better. People are happier, and there is more civility all around and happiness all around. So I think it's really important to have a large community room.
I'm Moira Paddock, and I'm a South Thomaston resident for the last 15, 16 years, but I've been a property owner for 41 years because we bought property here the year before we got married and just said we were going to retire here. We're planners, my husband and I. And so I'm on this committee for many reasons. Number one, I'm very much in favor of building a new building, one that's energy efficient and open, bright, inviting to everybody of all ages. And then it's important that, Catherine said, that it's big enough for large groups to meet. But it's so important to have something that is going to be the next step in, and where it is self-contained, it has solar, it's not having fossil fuels. Those are important because even my house uses no fossil fuels. And that's very important. And so I think this project is so important, and I have been on PTAs where we had to tear down an old school and relocate kids, 600 elementary school kids to another place. So we could build a new school because the other one was not a safe school. So I've done that. I've done in business building grocery stores in all locations in Alaska, so that they were unique. You fly in, no road, so they're all different things. I've had that experience, and this can be done. It won't be easy, but I hope that the town really gets behind it and wants and backs us up, because I don't see anything that's wrong about wanting a new building. I don't get that part. And so I think we really need to have everybody be on the same page, and that's very important. Thank you.
I'm Marcia Turner, and I am not against the new building, but I want us to remember that there was an amendment at the town meeting saying, look at renovation on with Gilbert Butler School also. And we have had some proposals in how that building could be renovated to be energy efficient. So I don't want us to lose track of that and just throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. We have a very small town. We're at either 12 to 1,400 people, so I think we need to keep that in mind.
I think there's has always been a little bit of divergence of opinion about the amendment, and what that meant about renovation. I think my position has been that we were given the clearing to go forward and try to design a building, and we couldn't figure out how to do that work, that we would return to the renovation. If I am not correct, I would love to know that, but
Well, it may be important to read it, to review it for everyone.
Yeah.
So it was Article 10, it was June of 2021 at the town meeting. And the original article said to see if the town will direct the select board at the recommendation of the Guilford Butler Futures Committee to create a library community center facilities committee, us, to plan and fundraise for the construction of a new building consisting of approximately 4,500 square feet to house a town-owned library and community center. Now, the amendment proposed was, and I'll quote it, notwithstanding the Futures Committee recommendation, which was to build a new building, this article shall not be construed to prevent the Facilities Committee from reevaluating possible renovation of the existing building if the committee finds renovation advisable due to changing circumstances, unquote. So that passed, that article passed as amended. That
John, I think that was your.
clear as mud.
It was,
And you, the example you gave was that if Stephen King came in and wanted to give us $2 million, if we used Guilford Butler, we would be able to take it.
that was kind of what I had in mind, that, and I also think that as process wise, and I really hate to go down this road of plowing this ground again here tonight, because it seems like we constantly replow this, but so much soil, the soil has eroded, but since we started, you know, also I think there would be a process in my mind where this facilities committee would come back to the select board and say, we've tried, we can't do this. Would you like to go try this other path? And that was kind of what I had in mind when I crafted that, and perhaps as Jan said, it's not as drafted as well as it could have been, but nevertheless, that's where we stand. I also realized I forgot to give my statement.
Yes, please.
And
Ken?
you might want to do Sherry.
Yeah,
we're-
Sherry Dash.
And then we're gonna move to Sherry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
Sherry,
Last but
I
not
was
last.
leaving some brief minutes.
Well,
but
thank you,
I'll
because
turn it
I've
over
just
to you now.
started. Yes, okay, thank you.
I said, oh, no,
No, no, no. Well, I'll have a comment about that because I went to the library.
okay.
So
anyway.
I just want
So, the reason I'm interested in this is because I was on the Guilford Butler's Futures Committee. As a matter of fact, I was elected chair of that committee. And I spent 2 years, more or less, of my life, basically debating the question that we're still talking about. And the committee voted to recommend a new building. I think there was, I can't remember the exact numbers, but there was 8, 4, and 1 opposed, or 7, 4, and 1 opposed, something like that. And we did a lot of research looking into the new versus old. So I think it's the only way to go. And I also think that what we're lacking now is a large meeting space. And I see no way to create that in the existing building. So I'm very interested in seeing a large meeting space for various different functions. I also was very much in favor of the library moving there temporarily. I worked hard with Penny, putting together a flyer on that because there was some opposition to that. And I think that I'm glad I did, because I think what's happening down there has been an overwhelming success, and I couldn't feel better about having worked to promote that. But I don't see those two things as mutually exclusive. I see those two things hopefully as inclusive, and I really wish we could marry the energy of this group and what's happening there. So anyways, that's why I'm continuing to
Great.
participate in this.
Okay, and Sherry Dashko is the other member
to,
of
right.
the Board of Directors, and I've asked everybody to introduce themselves and say why they think the project is important to them.
Okay, well, I think that it's really important to have a facility like the library. I came into this whole discussion without any preconceived notions. I really was aware, but I have learned a lot since I have become involved. I'll make a couple of observations. I have not been a Spruce Head resident for a long time, but I've been here a long time. And I've enjoyed the library as it is. My grandchildren have enjoyed the library. But I realized something tonight, and I don't think I would have appreciated it until I accidentally went to the library for this meeting, and that's why I'm late, is that I walked in and it was busy. It was very, very active, a lot going on, but it was very constrained. I mean, the space was really all being utilized. And I do think that there is a way to marry the two projects. I think programmatically, the library meets a very important need. I think that I mean, Penny has just done an amazing job at putting things together the way she has. But what I will say is, if we are looking to the future and future use of that space, it may need to be some approach that is more incremental, which marries both a new facility, and this is just my observation, and I have no standing to say it, but I'll say it. It's not like you get rid of one and build a new one. You incrementally work from the original, and then eventually you end up with, you build a new facility. It could be around the old one. You can retain certain features of the old one, which are important to the community. As an outsider originally, I recognize, because I have very dear friends who have generations of friends who have grown up and they have gone to this school, and I know how emotionally attached they are to it. But there is a solution to this, and I think the key is for all of us to be able to look at this not so much as a one versus the other, but how can both of these come together in order to allow for a facility that is updated, that is new, but also retains the feeling and the, and the needs that we have for a facility. That's just, I'm just giving you my own personal view. So, anyway, with that said,
Okay, so I want to move on about.
I would love to move on a little bit. I would like us to have a discussion about the roles of both, how we imagine the roles of these two groups working together and working separately. And I get confused. I'm the person that goes to both groups now, so I'm going to get confused, but I do sense that the board of directors, their function is really to raise money. That is primarily their sole function. That doesn't mean, in my mind, that they're the ones writing the grants. We didn't hire a grant writer, so there's got to be some overlap in terms of jobs. And we're working on a case statement, for example, for grant writing and for internal use in approaching funders. We're working on grant research right now. So that's something, I don't know the answer to this, but how do we go about sharing this information? What does the board want to know? When do you want to know it? How are we going to do this is basically a question that I have a lot of.
Well, I would agree with you that they, not only, well, the primary purpose is to raise money. I do think, as the bylaws say, to publicly support the town and its effort, but what does that mean? I mean, that's but that, and if Paul, one of the primary drivers behind creating the nonprofit is there was a feeling that a lot of grants will not make grants to municipal corporations who have taxing authority.
Right.
They want to make them to 501c3s. Which is what the board is trying to get. So I think that was one of the primary drivers. Now, someone still can make a donation to the town, and everything else being equal, that would be a tax deductible donation. And some people perhaps are more comfortable donating to the town than they are 501c3, and some people absolutely the other way. So I think that was sort of to be honest with you, in my opinion, was sort of the basic origin of the idea, was to open it up to folks that make grants only to 501c3s. Having said that, I think it strikes me that the board, the auxiliary, indeed is the primary worker bee for fundraising. But again, I agree with you. I don't think that necessarily excludes folks that are on the facilities committee. But I'd hate to see us two different people kind of going off in different directions, chasing. Right. I mean, so I do think we need to continue that conversation.
Yeah.
And you got to remember too, we just got organized.
Right.
We've
You're
had,
not required to meet monthly.
right. No.
I know you're out doing that now, but.
We just got organized. We had an organizational meeting where we elected officers and adopted the bylaws. That took about 12 minutes. And then we had our first meeting where we kind of talked about the bylaws and our role. I'm talking now about the board of directors. And have we met twice or three times? Twice.
three, I think. Well, I've only met twice, I think.
Okay, maybe it was three times. But I mean, we really have we're just now starting to get our feet under us, so to speak. We had, we've been doing mechanics like getting a bank account set up and getting 501c3 application in and that type of stuff. So we really haven't had what I would say a thorough conversation about fundraising strategies yet.
Well, fundraising, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was just going to say, Sandy, I think you're in that unique position where you sit on both boards to be that liaison of information between the two.
Right.
I mean, clearly, I feel that the board ought to be aware of what we're doing and kept appraised of progress and any assistance, and same thing. We should be appraised of what they're doing, how we can support them. I see us in more of a supporting role to the board in their mission of raising funds for a new building. Ours is a little broader perhaps because we're into the designing building and things like that, that goes beyond fundraising, but clearly in the fundraising area, I see us in a supporting role. And I would just say that,
I'd be,
you need to
yeah,
be our voice in both camps and
right,
make sure we're sharing the information.
yeah, Catherine.
I want to speak to the infrastructure of the fundraising and what I looked into, and now it's coming later, but I think it's relevant to those groups, which are, the pieces of software which are needed to support the effort. And they are, the donor screening software, the partner management software, communication, and, the accounting part of it. So, who is going to be in charge of all these elements? And there are decisions to be made about which software we are going to use. So again, I have a hard time thinking we're making this decision and then the other group gets to use the tools. So, that's where it gets difficult to partition and figure out who does what.
So just as a way of explaining, Catherine's been doing a lot of research about databases for plugging in all kinds of information, people that we might want to go to as donors, but also just people who are in support of the project. So we have a complete donor base, and well, not just
It's
donor
not
base.
just donor base, that's why I use the word partner.
Yeah.
It's like supporters. in
Support,
fact.
support.
It can be, supporting people who are volunteering to do various tasks. It can be, people contributing ideas, but also
Okay.
eventually, gathering money. And so anybody willing to contribute and help, somehow we need to keep track of who they are and what they do. And
Well,
then there
and-
is the whole issue of grant management, and that's part of, what we call the partner management software.
Right. So a couple things, right, as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, so somebody donates. Who writes the thank you letter? Just little things like that, that you really want to be very, very careful and very
So that's what
precise
you need to
about.
understand. Some of these software are designed to do that.
Hmm.
You do an entry and, and then, you set up who gets a letter, which kind of letter, and it can be done, automatically, but it means we need to have letterhead if you want to send a paper letter, depending on what you receive.
Well,
Or
or
it can
even
be
a phone call.
it can be a simple email acknowledgement, the same thing, you can integrate Constant Contact or MailChimp to the system. And all this is done automatically. You don't want to forget anybody. That's why it's very critical to have a good setup of all these things.
Well, we have $0 in our bank account. No, actually, we have 5 because we had to put 5 in to
Well,
set it up, right? So my personal opinion, we're a long way from software, not that we shouldn't be thinking
I
about it,
don't
but
think we should
it
be.
would strike me that if someone makes a donation to the auxiliary, it would be the auxiliary's job to thank them because the donation was made to the auxiliary. If someone makes a donation to the town, it would be the facilities committee, or actually the selectmen do it as a matter of course anyways, but so I mean, I don't see that as a problem.
But you don't want that to slip,
No,
Right,
no.
And it's really important to start. I have a little bit of experience working with Little Green Light.
Yeah.
So I worked for AIO as their energy assistance manager, and it's really slick because I could track my volunteer hours, and I knew I could look at my donors and I could, remember.
No, that's
who to-
exactly what I'm
And
talking
it will set up reminders to people who like to give on a regular basis to the organization. It's just so multifaceted. And if you start out from the beginning with it, you're not rebuilding something from scratch, so.
And it's
But it does
everything,
cost
all
money.
the information is kept in one place. That's what's key, so that you don't duplicate names, you don't duplicate efforts. So I think, we need to think of getting that as soon as possible, getting up to speed.
But who's we?
Yeah.
Well, that's the point. We're
Yeah.
in this together.
I know, but I go back to the beginning. I mean, if it's the town's purchasing it, then it belongs to the town. If it's the board purchasing it, I mean, it belongs to if it's a private nonprofit corporation belongs to them. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't both
Yes.
use it and
Well,
collaborate.
One sec, Rhonda, I've used Little Green Light too, and it's free.
Really?
Oh, well, that makes it easy.
Well,
Oh,
and let
it's so complicated and all encompassing
It's a
software.
data management
Wow.
software program only. And
Is
you
that-
can ask it to do other things,
Yeah.
it costs money.
Yeah, but I mean, there are several versions, and I was looking at one which is like $486 a year, and you know, you can have up to 2,500 names, so either volunteers, you know, donors.
Businesses,
You know, and businesses, you know, and so forth. So my point is, if we can get the 501c3, you know, designation sooner than later, people can start contributing money to that. And, you know, it's going to be a cost of raising money, but set up the tools you need to do a proper job.
Right.
And I think that's something that we need to stress when we're fundraising early on, that it costs money to raise money.
Exactly.
And we need to let people know that, you know, their money is not, unless they require it, their money is not necessarily gonna go towards a brick. It might go to pay someone to grant write or software. Yeah, 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 or architectural work, planning work, and in the unlikely event that it's unsuccessful, that money's been spent. And people need to understand that, I think, when they're making a donation. We need to be honest and upfront with people about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But all the assets of the board will ultimately go to the town at the end of the process. So if the board buys the software, for example, eventually it will belong to the town.
Eventually, right.
So
Well-
I think that's
Whatever is left goes,
right.
right. So
Whatever
if the
assets that are left
corporation
at the
was
end,
in debt,
whether it's money or whether
right,
it's,
but if the
things.
corporation was in debt, then the town
Right.
wouldn't get any.
right? Well, I'm assuming the corporation won't be in debt. Maybe that's a bad assumption, but
Yeah, that's a bad place to start the conversation.
a fundraising organization that's in debt is really gonna be in trouble.
Kate,
I think what I took away from what Catherine said, I think it's a very good point. There's a lot of management that needs to go on, and so that is a question. Oh, are we gonna help with that help the board with that management, or is the board gonna manage that? So just thinking about what I know of grants, it depends on, they can require a lot of oversight, a lot of paperwork, a lot of checking in, or they can be like, here's $250,000, go knock yourself out. But somebody's gotta do that, and so I wonder if that might be a role for us to kind of help with that sort of infrastructure piece, so that the board can concentrate on the fundraising piece.
That's how I would see it. I mean, that's how I.
I mean, how you see it.
That the facilities group helps manage and set up systems, and we're raising money, and they're helping us put the package. I don't know. I'm really new at this, but I've been really thinking about this a lot. I've been on the board for a few days. It's my first meeting. But I've been thinking about it, like how do we, if we don't have a graphic designer here that's helping us come up with, you know, the
Print material.
the package that we're handing to people when we're asking, if I'm visiting companies and asking for in-kind donations or things like that, then I need something to present to them.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have talked briefly about
Yeah.
that in our second meeting, then we need to come up with some sort of letterhead and basically a like I don't want to say brochure, but that's the one thing we have to, very briefly.
The media kit.
Yeah,
So what I'm hearing is that the facility committee is gonna work on the management of systems.
Creation, right?
Creation of systems, database gathering of names, how to manage the Little Green Light. But maybe could have a liaison with you who has experience, as we start to get going. There's no reason why we can't involve other community members. That's the other thing.
Grant writing committee, in
Yeah.
fact, we may,
Yeah.
We
it's the perfect area to
Yeah, for
reach
us.
out.
And so far Candace and I have been starting on the grant research. I've forwarded a bunch of material to her. She's setting up a database of foundations, the timeline for sending in grants.
I think possibility could be to do some appeal to volunteers, for the various needs we have. So, even using the listserv to say, okay, this is where we're at, and would anybody, in the community have knowledge about this or that and be willing to step up and help, and it's a way. Like,
I do, as president of the corporation, I do want to say one thing, and please don't take this as negative. The corporation has certain legal obligations under the bylaws, and we will under the 501c3 status, if and when we get it. And I don't think we can turn the management of those over to another group.
yeah.
And I don't want to get hung up on that tonight,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
just don't want to say, oh, yeah, you got to, because then all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
management may be the wrong
But
term.
I
but
think management
I mean,
is the
we're gonna
wrong
have to
term.
have our own records and our own accounting, no
Yeah.
matter how we slice or dice
Yeah.
this as a separate legal entity, so.
Well, there is
Sure.
precedent for, and I hate to say this, but I'm a lawyer, but I'm not licensed in Maine yet. I'm working on it. But there is precedent for some coordination and maybe some co-management opportunities. That's how many organizations save money, is that they, and there's nothing inconsistent with the bylaws in doing it, as long as each organization's board is paying attention and is retaining its responsibilities as it is set out in the bylaws. So I think that, I mean, when I think of the facility and the auxiliary, because the idea of the idea of really having this meeting, I think may have come from me originally, because I felt like I knew the least about the function of both organizations when I came on. And I view that the facility committee has one focus, the auxiliary has another. The auxiliary's focus is to support the development of a facility or the support of the library, in whatever form it's going to ultimately take. And so there can be, I think that an opportunity to share some of the resources, not resources in money, but the capabilities, so tools,
Yeah.
the expertise that you have available to you, so that there could be, because it's not a one-to-one situation where if I'm on the auxiliary board, I can't do anything to support the facilities board, because we're both we're focusing on the fundraising, but our fundraising is for the purpose of supporting the facility. That's why we're called an auxiliary.
Yeah, and I wasn't in any manner trying to suggest that.
Oh, no, I know, John. I just, but what?
I just don't want to get a letter from the IRS saying that as president of the corporation.
No, we won't let that happen, I promise. But I do think that it also allows for greater communication and collaboration between the two boards, with each organization knowing exactly what their roles and responsibilities are. And I mean, I think this meeting is an important first step. And then the question is, how do we move forward and begin to define the needs? And I'll tell you, one of my big questions is, if you're out there raising money for funding, you've got to also have a consistent explanation or story as to why are you raising the money? What is it for? And I think somehow we need to be able to agree as to what that is. I mean, and help me here. You may have already done this.
We're in the
so-
process of
Okay.
drafting a
Okay.
case statement, I think is what you're talking
Okay,
about.
that's, yes.
Your
Yeah.
message, if you
Yeah.
will.
Right.
But so that's and that's good to know, because I again, I don't have a history like Rhonda. I'm kind of new at this as well.
Bumping in, but having our story is
Yeah.
where we start, right? And
Yeah.
then-
Right.
And then we can explain to people from the beginning that we're getting started, we've got an exciting mission, we need administrative funds to start building things like having software and stuff like that.
Actually, that's a question I was gonna ask tonight is, what has the committee, the facilities committee? And I'm gonna try to use the word committee and board to keep them separate. Has the committee thought about what it needs for funding initially? I mean, what's the the first funding in the door, is it for stuff like software or architectural support? I mean, I'm assuming it's not bricks at this point, but I'd like to hear
Well, okay,
if at some point you guys have had a conversation about that.
yeah, it's from, I'll speak to that. It's kind of hard to know what goes first, what goes second.
I know, and that's what
And
I'd be.
And even if this edition has, what do we do first? So I think there's a few things that will be happening very soon. And one is this case statement that needs to be written, which you would think that goes only with grants, it's like your boilerplate, part of your boilerplate mission, but it requires the personal aspect of why we're doing this, what our mission is, why it's important, why is it needed. And any grantor will be looking for your case statement, but that's the external. The internal is that all of us can use that case statement as part of our meeting with them.
The conversation starter,
Yeah,
even, I
that's
mean,
the-
is
yeah.
that basic, yeah.
And so I wrote a draft of a case statement last year and I handed it off to a few people. There are many articles you can read about fundraising and the importance of the case statement and how to make it a compelling document. And right now, I think Jan and Marcia and Kate will be working on that.
I actually have
So that's not
a draft of your draft, if you will, or
yeah.
an edited version of the draft that you put together
Oh, great.
that I was gonna pass out to the committee tonight
Yeah.
with a lot of track changes and easy to at least follow what's new. And if you hold up what's the old, you'll be able to kind of do a comparison. No pride of ownership here. It really is just an attempt to flesh out some of the things that you had put in there and the,
Yeah, we know a lot.
things we needed to say a little bit, and there's still holes in it, you'll
Yeah.
see.
It takes a while.
And put it in language that
This
that
was
we'll all
like-
accept.
The first, I have met 2 times with a capital campaign consultant. Pro bono, I haven't spent any money. And so, that is an expenditure, which I'm not ready to advise what we spend. I think we can do a lot of the work ourselves. Perhaps up to the moment of really going public, because we might want somebody to look at our materials before we do that. Who's had a lot of experience helping people build new libraries and new other kinds of nonprofit facilities. So that could be
So that sounds like publicity money,
something in the future.
to put it in a word.
Outreach, maybe.
Um, Yeah,
And so another category is software. So as we start to
I heard that.
approach people, we need to document all of
Technical
that.
support.
We can't just be writing lists on paper, that's not gonna work.
We talked a lot
But we-
about the media hit. What would we be bringing to as we're doing these outreach meetings, right? We've had lots of discussions about what we need in that packet. Besides the case, do we need a 3D model? Do we need, with those discussions?
So as we start these ambassador group meetings, which we're going to do as soon as we feel like we have the right information to go into a group of 6 or 8 people, and we're going to do these in our homes. Everybody on our committee, the facility committee, will be posting ambassador groups. We feel like we need some kind of 3-dimensional drawing of a projected idea, not the idea, but something that helps us feel. Here's an aerial view, but something that would situate a new building on this space in the right direction to capture sun, the southern exposure, light. And we met with an architect on Tuesday to find out how much we're not hiring an architect yet,
But he's giving us a proposal.
but he's giving us a proposal. I think I sent that to you today, John, too, just to inform you of that. So that will have a price tag attached to
Is
it.
it for a 3D model or just a 3D rendering?
Just a rendering. He is, do you know him, Xander? He
Oh, I
did the
do?
building, he did the AIO
Sure.
building. Yeah. So that's something that this committee feels that it's important for us to have, to go into people's homes, to give people some visual of what it could look like in the space.
Mhm.
So that's some money that might need to be spent. And yeah, and then letter.
Also, 3 buckets, although I think you could put the first and the third in the same bucket. But
There's probably gonna be some printing costs
Printing,
associated
yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
You know, at last meeting, we asked for an overhead. I actually contacted Jeff Northgraves, who has a drone and took some photographs, which is what I gave the committee. I actually got about 10 different shots, which I gave to Xander Shaw on a thumb drive the other day for him to use as he's putting this proposal together. And Jeff did that pro bono. You know, I asked if there was a cost. I thought there might be, but you know, Jeff has enough ownership of this whole project that he was the right guy to reach out to. But those kinds of costs, we're gonna see more of those things. So I think there is a need to probably startup money, I guess as I would call it, whether that's the board deciding to throw some money into the donation pot or whatever, but there is gonna be. I don't know if there's anything in the town, whether you put anything in the budget this year, you know, for this. I know there's Guilford Butler money in the budget, but I don't know.
nothing for planning or
Yeah.
this end. I mean, there's money
So
for maintenance of the building.
That
Yeah.
75,000 is for the building, not for,
What's everything?
isn't that, I
for
thought I read that somewhere that the town will.
Oh, that was for demolition. Okay.
I think,
Catherine.
Jan, what you just said is actually important. Jeff donated, you know, the use of the drone. and-
That should be documented.
Yeah.
That could be a match for.
And that's exactly it. That's where the software becomes useful. We need to keep track of this. This was an in-kind donation, you know, valued at. Because when we go for grant, it's like, well, how much did you raise on your own? And, you know, every bit counts.
But until we have that though, just getting a letter from Jeff to throw in the file that says I spent 2 hours and I
Yeah.
charged $12 an hour, we can, you know, we can. Whatever he charges, we can start there, you know, we don't have to wait until we're.
Even Gabe.
No, we have to have
Gabe's
a paper
work.
trail to get there.
Gabe's
Yeah.
work was pro bono too.
Yeah,
Right.
and that stuff should be documented and put in the file.
In charge of getting that letter, who is going to be in charge of holding a binder with all those letters, you know, to keep track, because, you know, that's the key, we need to be very organized to keep track of everything.
But I'll come back to who did it. In this case, the facilities committee did it, so I think they should get that documentation. If it's something I did or Herb did, then we should get it.
All right, that makes sense.
But it should probably rest
we
with
can-
you.
we can-
If we get the document, we probably should put them all in one folder.
Or we can have 2 full.
Well, I guess we can. But I mean,
But the point is, my
an
point is,
in-kind donation to the committee is an in-kind donation to the town. An in-kind donation to the corporation is an in-kind, it's different.
yeah,
So I mean, I think there is
exactly.
a,
But I mean, we can sort it out what it was later, as long as we have a record of it. But, oh, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead. Sorry.
Maura.
Well, we need to backtrack because back in February when Gabe was running, the, process of designing the building, that's when we started with our statements of what the building meant to us. So we all on the committee at that time put in statements. Some people followed the rules and went with 2 sentences, others wrote lots of pages. But all of that was used in the documentation when we did the presentations this summer. And so there are in-kind donations for that, which is what the point to bring up is that in-kind donations to print that, make it, all of that was done by the facility committee, but by a couple key people. And so we need to do some backtracking because we documented it, but we weren't having this discussion of, you know, donors and donations. And it's the same thing, you know, we always want people to write their names on the sheet who come to these meetings, and that all needs to be documented because the more people that come involved in these meetings, it can all branch out and it's more networking. And so it's a combination that we got to backtrack and go back to those.
Yeah. I think you're right. John, did you want to say anything? No.
So we as a board have talked about what do we need for funds, very little, not very little funds, very little talk. And we didn't come up with a lot. I mean, we came up with some, you know, a letterhead, some postage, to be able to print some materials. So That's a similar bucket that you folks are talking about as well.
But we do have to, for the application for the 501c3.
Mhm.
Yeah,
have
we
to
already
do
got
it.
that.
Yeah,
But
That's all set.
did you put a year budget on there? Did you,
I can't do I don't know how to do the budget. So I mean, if we have a budget, I need to have that.
did
we
you
have to
already
develop-
send in the application?
Oh, no. You and I are gonna have a
I know, I
conversation because
emailed you
yeah,
the-
no, I know.
yeah.
I forwarded you the checklist of
Oh.
what we need to do,
Oh,
so we
okay, I
can
didn't
put
see
the
that.
application
Okay.
But
together.
we have the money for that.
Yeah, yeah.
File the
Okay.
application was $500.
Yeah, well, it's
But
gonna
what
be
I-
about 500, a little more, I think it's seven.
What I am proposing is that, as we do the application and have to put a budget for this
Yeah.
first year, which is gonna require
Right.
some of this software
Right.
and perhaps an architectural drawing. That the
Uh,
board are the first people we're gonna go to for money for this first year. I mean, we all have to
Yeah.
have skin in the game fairly quickly.
So that all needs to be we need to have a list. It doesn't have to be detailed. It just has to be
But
enough.
She's talking about a budget for the board. So if we're gonna make a donation to the town, but for the committee, that would be in our budget.
Is that,
We're not gonna do the budget for the 501c3 for the.
Well, you have to have a budget for the
I
501c3.
understand
Yeah,
that, but
yeah.
it's the board's budget. It's not the facilities
Oh.
committee's
Mhm.
budget. It would only be in our budget if we're gonna expend
Right,
it, give
right.
it to the town, so
Right,
go to the
right.
facilities committee. So,
that's a conversation for the board?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Sandy, are you trying to say that, individual board members and facility committee members should be standing by to make some kind of contribution?
Yes, in the
This
year
first year's worth of
2023.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's really important for our status as a 501c3 to get board members involved financially.
Yeah, that's actually a
Doesn't have to
fairly
be a lot.
common expectation, is that the board members step up to the plate at least to support the initiative. And then if you put that out, then it also helps with.
And once we get a 501c3
Yes,
designation.
yes, yeah. Well, all we have to
on that
do is
list.
get the application in.
yeah, right.
That's
We
all
only
we have to
get the
do.
Designation.
Yeah, I mean,
As long as the
it,
application's in, we can.
that's all you have to
take
do.
action.
Right,
uh,
so
So
that's,
for example, if we ran into if we, in our grant research, come up with a planning grant, which I think would be a.
that was
cool
actually
thing if
gonna
we
be
could
my
find one.
suggestion, is a
Uh-huh.
planning grant.
You know, what they're gonna wanna know is the board participation financially. You know, do you have 100% participation of your board? And that will be a question on most grants that go to 501c3, you know, the funders for 501c3s. So that's an important thing that we need to do as a board.
So, once the application is submitted, about how long does it take for the designation?
Oh, it's unclear. I mean, we have a nonprofit organization that I worked on. It's a coalition, but it'll probably be 2 or 3 months before we actually get a 501c3.
So it's already
designation.
November and this is 2023,
Right.
so we may not have the designation in 2020.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
but-
by application
Yeah,
though.
it's
See, it's
application.
retroactive
Oh,
to the
one
date
back-
that you get the,
okay,
so as long as we get the application in.
Unless you're
It's-
not approved.
Well, they're pretty good about contacting
we'll
the,
make sure.
yeah, they're pretty good about reaching out if they have questions. At least
Well,
that's been
the
my-
only reason I bring that up, and I'm just gonna be completely honest, is when the lawyers looked at our bylaws, they were careful. They tried to make sure that it was separate enough from the town, that it wasn't really the town. I mean, it's kind of the duck theory, you know, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck and. And, you know, so they actually took some of the things out that we had in the original bylaws because they felt that it was too tight to the town. It's, you know, it's like, hey, that's really the town, so.
All right, well, we have to be really mindful of that.
Yeah, but I think we should, hopefully we're fine there, so,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
Well,
I know you guys got a
Yes.
long agenda. How long do you, I mean, this is a
No,
great conversation.
this is a great conversation. I think I'd like to bring it to end, but I'd like to also ask about ideas for future, how we want to collaborate. You know, do we want future meetings twice a year that we're together, or how do we want to go forward? with the conversation between the two groups? Is it, or just you need to be the liaison?
As needed, you know, because since you're in both. You know, if we have like questions, definitely you can bring them to the board and then, you know, bring it back. Without having to spend the whole evening.
Or we can bring some of us to the board meeting if that's.
Yeah.
needed.
Mhm.
I think a joint board meeting, maybe quarterly or something like
Yeah, I
that.
was
Would be
thinking
a,
quarter.
I like that.
would be
Yeah,
a good,
second quarter.
you know, if there's no issues, it's a real quick
Yeah.
meeting, but, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do we all agree with that? Do we need to do anything official about that? Or just,
Are your board meetings open to the public? Come to?
yes. they
Yeah,
are.
we're subject to the open meetings.
We're subject, not by law.
Right.
We're subject to the open meeting law because it's in our bylaws.
Yeah,
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
on that.
yeah.
But under the law, we're not subject to
Right.
it, but we put it in our bylaws because the idea was to make this group as transparent and public as possible and still keep it a private nonprofit corporation.
When do the board, when does the board meet?
Well, that's actually on our agenda before we adjourn.
Okay,
Um,
why don't you handle?
are you, I don't.
I just
I don't wanna
want,
mix-
so what I hear is that we're going to. We're going to try to meet quarterly if, unless it's not necessary. Is that, did I hear that correctly? And is that
As a full group.
as a full group? And, if that's in everyone's
Can I-
agreement?
I just want to ask a question. So does that meeting then count as a meeting of our board?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that it counts
Actually,
as,
if 3 or more people get together
yeah,
and discuss this business, that's a meeting.
got
And
it.
if it's not posted, it's an illegal meeting.
Well,
True for the board of directors.
we know that,
Yeah, because we're subject to the poll law.
that's why John takes care of those things.
That's true of the facilities committee and it's true of us.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
And
you
we're,
and I
agree-
get together to brainstorm
No.
or
Yeah.
something, that's.
No,
No, you
3 or
said
more.
3 or more, okay.
Yeah,
we can
Because I
meet.
need a lot of.
2 can meet.
brainstorming,
Yeah,
I am
and you
just
can meet
kidding.
with-
and you can, and you and Catherine can meet.
Yeah,
And I can meet with 3 members of my committee, but not 4.
okay.
No, you can't meet with
Two.
3. It's 3 or more. You can meet with one other person.
7 on our committee.
It's, the law says
No,
3 or
it just means
You're
3
right. So 2,
individuals.
only 2.
only 2.
Yeah,
And can I just back to the tracking of expenditures now? And maybe I tend to
No.
overthink a little bit, but so
Overthinking.
facilities group,
We'll take care of,
for instance, the drone
yes.
situation, somebody has a folder there, and is the,
I
will the
will, I
board
will
would-
be the folder person for the.
okay,
facility.
and for the board, would it be Barbara because she's the
Okay.
treasurer? I mean, does that make sense? Okay. So we've already established that, so now I can,
You can rest.
I can let that go.
So before we adjourn, we being the board. We typically have been meeting monthly to start and I think, plan to do that for a while until we get organized. And we've been meeting here on the 3rd Wednesday at 5. Or 4.
3:30, I
No,
think we
3:30.
The last time.
Yeah.
We're so
So-
confused.
We had a meeting scheduled for December, but 2 of our members, Barbara and, for
November.
November.
Yeah.
2 of our members can't be here. So we have this meeting tonight. I suggest that we schedule the 3rd Thursday in December, although that's the 20th. Is that getting too close to Christmas for board members?
which meeting, the Wednesday or Thursday? Because Wednesday is our
Wednesday
meeting.
starts.
Wednesday.
Yeah, okay.
Board meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Is that
Does that work for people?
what day would that be?
Because
Is it the
Hold on.
20th, right
It is
there.
the 20th.
And
20th, yeah.
3:30. That's. a
At
work
3:30,
day for me, I can
yeah.
just-
Here, we meet, or we have been so far, about, we'll post an agenda.
Is that the auxiliary board meeting?
That's the.
Okay, I just want to make sure
They're a committee.
I'm tracking, okay?
Um, So we'll cancel our November meeting that we already scheduled. Okay, the board,
That's the night before Thanksgiving, anyway, right?
it is,
Yep, the 3rd.
okay, so, are we good there then?
Okay.
And so unless there's objection, I will.
Take the board now.
No, people are welcome to stay, but I'm gonna, unless there's objection, go ahead.
Confused, have we changed the meeting on the 15th to something else?
Well, you couldn't be there, right?
Right.
So we're canceling it,
Oh,
because you and Sandy can't be there either.
okay.
and Rhonda tells me it's the night before Thanksgiving.
No,
No.
Second.
Yeah.
I was
22nd is before
But anyways, that's immaterial.
All right.
So is there any objection to adjourning the board meeting? None heard, the board is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
all.
certainly welcome to stay and listen to the conversation. But you can't talk to your fellow.
Rich,
About that.
Yeah, I just have a question.
Thank you, guys.
The agenda called for public comment, all right, and
I moved it down
there
to,
was no availability for public comment. The next, my second question is if we have questions, how do we get answers? Who do we direct the questions to?
that's a good question.
Questions about what?
You're Rich, are you talking about the
You have
facilities
questions
now or the
about
board?
Board of directors, you direct them to the board of directors. If they're nonprofit, if you have questions about the facility, you direct them to. I'm the president. For now, if you have questions about the corporation, feel free to contact me.
And I would say the same from the facilities committee, and I'm sure Dan would welcome any questions that you might have. We moved the public comments down to after this meeting, so this is perfect that you're asking this right now.
Okay, and I think another question I have is there a time frame for this work? I mean, is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Can it be 50 years? All right, because I just think there needs to be some type of a time frame on this because, you know, there's a lot of work being done by you guys and by the rest of the community in terms of Penny and others. And I really think we need to have a time frame to, in respect for you and in respect for Penny, as to what work, you know, where are we going? And at what point do we say,
Yeah.
this isn't working, whatever. I have a lot of questions and I'll pose questions to John and I have some questions for, Jan, are you,
Yeah, I'm a co-chair for the facilities committee.
okay,
Glad to talk to you about it. To answer your question on, is there a limit on the time? As of now, there is not. And I would guess that it would be for the facilities now, it would be the town that would decide. So at some future town meeting, you know, I'm assuming that this committee is gonna have a report to the town. And if the town says, okay, you got 5 more years or 3 more years or 2 more years. I mean, we serve at the pleasure of the town. The committee was formed as a result of the town meeting decision. The town meeting decision can change. I guess that's what I would say.
But can I,
But it is gonna take some time, Rich.
that's an excellent question, because I've been thinking it too. There's so much work to be done. How do we know yet? But there
Right.
should be like a goal, right? Of the, within
Yeah.
5 years, maybe we're breaking ground. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Well,
but-
Well,
I
if
think
you,
there's steps, and I don't exactly know how to quantify it in terms of time, but I think a feasibility study is a very definite step where we can say, okay, you know, we know how to move forward, or this is really problematic. I mean, and that could take the next 6 months or so to do. There's a lot of different aspects to a feasibility study and a lot of research that we have to do. And a lot of presentations that we have to make to people to find out about that. So that's one step. Then we, you know, I think after that, we might be at the point of thinking about. I'm sure there'll be, you know, some other way that we have to be in touch with the town around moving forward. I don't know exactly what that would be, but.
well, if I remember from the Futures Committee report out, that there was some lengthy. Where you studied other libraries that were built. There were different lengths of times, you know, that they spent raising funds and.
Yeah.
It's not on the top of my
All the way up to 10 years.
memory, but yeah, I was gonna say some of them were rather lengthy. I mean, it isn't something that you're gonna do.
Well,
Yeah.
not only that, I think. COVID threw a wrinkle on this,
It did,
but,
for us it did.
well, yeah, that's what I mean, not for the board of directors, but.
Yeah, we're already what,
But the
2019 was the,
the library temporary move to the Gilbert Butler, I think was for 5 years. I'm anticipating that's probably gonna have to be re-upped.
But I wanted to ask Richard, I mean, you had experience with AIO, so how long was it from the day, people decided a new building was needed and until you moved in? How long did that take?
It was a different situation with AIO. AIO had a major benefactor that, that helped build that building. All right, so.
We're hoping for the same.
AIO
Yeah.
was not in the fundraising, mode, for more than 6 months.
Yeah.
All right, because of the major benefactor who put the money up for that building.
Wow.
So, a lot different, a lot different.
I'm gonna run, so thank you guys, and anybody on the board who wants to
Tenants,
stay.
I can tell you, Rich, Tenants Harbor took 10 years.
Right.
Tenants Harbor, the Jackson Library, in Tenants Harbor, that was a 10-year project.
I think it's gonna take that one.
Sam, you have to make sure everybody's signed in. So I have all the changes. Thank you.
Oh, I think John took that one.
You're talking about the board names? or-
No.
The sign-up sheet.
Public-
Yeah, John took the sign-up sheet.
Okay, do you have another one, so we can have people sign it?
I have the tablet here. You need paper?
Okay, you have some paper?
Sure. Let's take my page off. Take a bit.
I got it.
Oh, Sandy, I'm doing it right now. Yeah, all right. I know you signed it on John's spirit.
I mean, I don't know why these people.
There's no reason for this, that environmentally it's a sound. Environmentally, I think it's not sound. And I'm also, with so many people, I don't know how much we love having. Some of these people, no, it's not, it's passion, it's that it's currently for us right now. And the problem is, when we're, those people who are sleeping on 97 years old. I know. It's really. I know.
That's my fault. You guys got some, maybe, because I'm so grateful.
And you look at it, and you're casting.
What Kevin's got.
Yes, I have a copy. Thanks. Unless you sent them to us.
Okay, can we reconvene? All right, folks, we're going to go back to meeting.
Excuse us, sorry.
Leave it outside, take all conversations we have outside.
I retired 3 times.
Yeah, not now.
So that's good.
We're gonna try to end our meeting, so thank you so much. Okay, so next I want to ask for public comment for items not on the agenda. If there are comments that we need to make at this point, or if you'd like to make, nothing.
I guess it's a question of the John for the board. All right, I was questioning who developed the bylaws, whether it was the Maine Municipal Association or whether it was an attorney. I'm just asking because, the other item was that
You said about the board of directors.
I sit on a few nonprofit boards, okay, I would not sit on a nonprofit board if I wasn't covered by directors and officers coverage, just today, because there's too much out there. There's too many difference of opinions and stuff, so I just question, you know, not for you, that this committee is part of the town. All right, so I think they're covered by the town, but the board of directors is not. Okay, and the board already is in violation of the bylaws by not having an appointment from the library.
No, the town voted.
No, well, first of all, your question,
That's board- No,
you're talking about the board of directors,
right,
not the
yeah, so
facilities
I'll
committee.
bring that up with John.
Yeah, so I wouldn't go there.
Oh, okay. Okay, you can take, but, well, anyway, the second vote was to establish a 501c3 in 2022, so that involves by a board of directors and bylaws, so that's.
Right.
I'll let you take that up with.
Yeah,
John,
I
but
got
just,
some questions, just to make
just
sure.
to tell you how the bylaws came about, the attorney wrote up our town attorney wrote up the bylaws, and then we had a joint meeting between this committee and the select board to discuss the bylaws and all of our questions and all of our concerns and things that we felt could be in there, shouldn't be in there, all of that, and then it went back to the attorney, and then it came back to be approved by the board of directors, and it was.
No, John mentioned that it was approved by the town. All right, and I don't recall being at a town meeting when it was on the agenda, you know, so I'm just, if we're gonna do things, we're gonna do it right, you know, it's the way it should be done, you know, and, you know, I just have questions because you gotta have you know, a firm foundation to start off.
Well, the last town vote was in 2022 that allowed us to set up a 501c3.
And that included the bylaws,
Yeah.
but that, those questions should be to the board, and not
Right.
for our
Right,
committee at
so
this
I'll
point.
just, yeah, again, refer you to John on that one. Yeah. Any other comments? Questions, etc. Okay. I'd like to.
Well, I have one, I thought Elaine did you?
Yeah.
She's calling for that, you know, she's asking for that.
My name is Elaine Smith and I live in South Thompson. It doesn't make much sense that the desires of a small group should take precedent over the wishes of a large group of South Thompson residents. We use this facility at least several times a week for a wide range of social, artistic, and intellectual activities. I've not seen those opposed join us for any of these sort of get-togethers. It is environmentally reprehensible also to tear down a solid, well-constructed, spacious building, which provides many separate areas for a variety of activities. What would the demolition cost? Has this been figured into overall costs? Where would all the rubble be dumped? What will it cost both environmentally and financially to dispose of these materials safely? What other kinds of hidden costs may occur? Finally, an emotional concern. We have a wide range of users from preschoolers to people in their mid-90s, late 90s. Where will we all be able to meet and socialize, especially during cold weather, which covers a good part of the fall, winter, and spring? How will we be able to borrow books? Where will they be stored with easy access? This building provides an extremely important and valuable center for so many of us who would be denied a place of healthy socialization for perhaps 2 years. Finally, there are several nearby libraries which would be more than adequate to meet the desires of those expecting a more classy type of setting and appropriate to a small fishing village. It is regrettable that the very unpretentiousness and quaintness of this village that perhaps appeal to wealthy citizens is now exactly that which they wish to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from folks?
Yes, I was wondering, before the last facility committee meeting, the select board directed that the task be expanded to include determining the cost of demolition and mitigation and the cost of relocation during construction. And I wondered when we were going to see that added to the agenda.
I would say that we're a long way from that.
But I think that's part of the overall picture when you
Right.
say that this is going to have impact on
I think
tax
we talked
dollars.
about this at the last meeting. I questioned the select board about it and understood that we were being asked to have that as part of our mission to look into the costs of those things. And as Jan says, we're a long way from that right now. But I was assured that even though it's on our agenda to look into that and find out the costs, it's not on our agenda to be necessarily raising the money for that.
Right.
So I think that's the answer. I don't have another answer to give you.
Well, I understand, I was given the impression that yes, you're responsible for finding out what it's gonna cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's-
You're not responsible for raising money for it.
Correct.
But the townspeople need to know, and this committee, with the exception of a couple of people, has not been upfront about telling the townspeople that you are gonna be on the hook for the demolition. You are gonna be on the hook for getting rid of all this stuff. You are gonna be on the hook for all these little items. And I don't believe that there is a transparency here. I haven't seen anything.
Well, I think you're early in the process.
I think it needs to be, it needs to be part of the process that the town is aware when you're giving your meetings and everything to various groups. You need to say, this is what demolition is gonna cost, but it's coming out of the town's pocket,
Well,
not,
I'm not sure you can say that yet because the town will decide whether it comes out of their pocket or not.
well.
The committee's not gonna decide that.
Then where is the demolition money gonna come from if
But-
you're not raising it?
You may find a donor that will donate for demolition. I really don't know. I mean, it's all hypothetical at this point. But I think, before you get too excited about it, I think
Well, I just think there's more transparency that needs to be out there.
there's nothing, we used to call the expression open kimono. There's nothing hidden here, which is why we have these open meetings. Those are costs that, other than the cost that was an initial estimate done by the Futures Committee, and don't quote me on that, but it's on the Futures Committee report. I want to say demolition was like 75,000 was estimated, but that's a 2019 price tag. So, take that for what it's worth. And that was demolish and remove. I mean, that was materials, tore down and carted away. That would have to be updated, but it would be part of this process as we look at the costs of design and build and all that stuff. You've got a site preparation,
Right.
which is demolition and grading and all that sort of stuff. The horizontal work is all going to be part of that price tag. And that'll be visible. When we know it, you'll know it. I mean, there's no reason we wouldn't share that. But any expenses related to this, I think you all understand it, is the town will decide that. This committee isn't going to decide that. We're going to lay those costs out and the town will have the opportunity to decide who's going to pay for it
It'll
and
be
how.
on warrant for the.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And I would encourage you, again, based on your statement about the structural integrity of the building, to go back and review the engineering structural condition assessment that was done by engineers Gartley and Dorsey. I believe that's on the website. The actual Futures Committee report is on the website. And then the initial cost that John Hanson did, which was, again, an overview. He did this for the Futures Committee, looking at both renovation and construction. Those three are kind of the seminal documents that we're working from. And be familiar with them because, I mean, all the things you said about the library, this is just Jan Gaudio talking now, is all the more reason that we want a vibrant facility. I mean, I think it's wonderful that it's busy. I think it's wonderful that people are there. There's no desire to change that. Might there be some interruption during construction and so on? Absolutely. I mean, that's in any structure, but we would look for other sites or other facilities or something we could use on a temporary basis. There's no intention to just say, okay, you're out of here, we're closing the doors and go home. We wouldn't want to do that. And all of those things that you're doing in that building now, we would want to do in any building that's going to replace it or the renovated building. So I mean, all of those wonderful things that are happening, we want to continue to happen. This is going to be I envision this building to be kind of the heart of the town. It's going to be in the heart of the village, and I think it's going to be a pulling people together facility. But anyway, that's just my personal opinion. I don't speak for the committee on that.
I think that's what's happening now. And I think as a committee, we need to get in there and find out what the town is using it for. Before we start designing a building, because I'm not sure some of you ever go in there to know what's going on.
Well, we had several sessions in there where we invited the public in to talk about it. They were held in the library.
One Saturday morning.
One Saturday morning,
Yeah.
Right.
and the majority of the people that were there were people that come on Saturday morning anyway.
I was in there as part of the committee that was looking at
The resilience.
sustainment as well. We had a meeting in there. So,
I just think we
But
need
yeah.
to know how the building is being used by the townspeople. And
well,
I'm not sure-
and that's one of the reasons I think that it's so vital that there be a member of this committee or this board appointed from the library. And I said that at the select meeting the other night.
Well,
I think your voice needs to be heard in there.
I have not found any willing nominee, and I was told at the last facilities committee meeting that they would put forth a candidate to me to consider, but it didn't happen. So that's when I decided I did not want to hold that up any longer. I want to keep my name off of that. So, but to go back to, I think it might have been before your time that I was told by a member of this committee that, you know, the closure wouldn't be a closure, it would be an interruption, and that the select board didn't expect the committee to face those tasks. And there was a letter sent and read aloud by the select board to this committee about these tasks that are part of the big picture, because at these special meetings around town, it was said, well, there's no impact to the tax dollar, and this committee doesn't, consider the mitigation and demolition nor relocation as part of their big picture, but as part of the town, it's all part of the big picture.
Absolutely.
And it needs to be considered by law with the 3.5 million and 18-month construction time. I mean, this is all part of the big picture that we need to vote on at one point.
Yeah.
So I just would like to see something started in that regard to consider how this would work. So that's why
I just would like to say that
It's gonna
the
come.
original recommendation of the Guilford Butler Futures Committee would be that the town would reserve money for demolition. That is a long time ago now. It's not really, that's all up for discussion again, but that was the original recommendation that the facilities committee that a new building, the fundraising would be for a new building, not for the demolition. So that's something that has to be rediscussed. I think that finding solutions for a temporary, once building should begin, is something that this committee definitely needs to be. And some of us have been looking in on it a little bit, but not, that's not the project we're working on just yet. So I don't think it's a lack of transparency, Denise. I think there's a lot of different decisions that we're trying to work on all at one time. And I know how passionate you all are. I know how passionate Penny is about the community, and I think your statement was beautiful. There's some things I would take exception with, and I'd love to have that conversation with you. But I think we're equally passionate about the future of not and I know it's gonna upset some of us while these things go on, but I'm not talking about the next 2 years, I'm talking about the next 50 to 75 to 100 years. And some, that building is gonna require a lot of renovation over quite a few years, so.
May I make a suggestion? If I'm hearing folks correctly, they're asking for agenda items, and so perhaps we should have a standing item that just is a check-in about, so if we're saying we don't know anything else, it's not the time, fine, but every month is there any new information regarding the process of, demolish or whatever the process may be, because I don't know that, we're not making that decision, obviously, right? But in our purview. And the other suggestion I might make is that we take what Marcia said, and maybe part of our homework is to go to the library, those of us who, I am not in town unfortunately very often because of work. So it's hard for me to get there, but I'm willing to make an extra effort to get there, and I know most of you are more involved than I am. But that, we do that every once in a while, and again, maybe that could be an agenda item too. I know, I'm not saying we should, set agenda items based on public comment, but I am suggesting that perhaps we do have a standing
Check-in.
agenda item just to check in. I also would, just a point of order, and I could be confused, and this is going to be perceived as me being not wanting to be transparent, and I apologize, but public comment, in my experience, is not a back and forth. We have business to do, and we should set up times for the back and forth, absolutely, Q&As and all that, continue that, but I feel like we've gotten out of Robert's rules.
Yeah, and I apologize for that.
No, I just.
Normally, you're right, you just listen to the public comment and not return.
But Sandy, periodically, if not every time, but basically checking in with the community. Yes, Moira.
I agree with Kate that, we get public comments, we should end it there, but I do want to say something. But, because I went back to the minutes, Penny, and 2 meetings ago, we asked if you wanted help on, and you said, no, thank you. And then last meeting, you said that you were looking for someone who's an active member of the community center and library, but you didn't ask for any help. So would you like us to get you some names to consider, or?
No, not at this point. I had expected one before the last select board meeting when I was asked whether I would have one or not. I said I didn't and I wouldn't.
So there's, you
But
don't want
they
to.
are still looking for another candidate, so give them whatever you got.
Well, no, I'm asking, do you want a name?
No, I expected one before the last select board meeting when they wanted my answer, so it's done now.
Okay, because I just wanted to clarify that. And I think we need to move on to.
Yes, I'd like to move on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we need to do minutes.
We're in the committee work.
No.
Except
the minutes.
Approval of the minutes from October.
Approval of minutes, please.
We're still back there. Okay. Okay, I trust that you've all read the minutes of October 5th. And I don't know if you need more time, but
We read them, so I second.
I got the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
no. All those in favor? So now I've handed you all the copy of the committee norms that we discussed at last meeting. There are 9. I will put them at the forefront or the second page of the agenda, just as a reminder. I don't know that we need to go through these either, but I think that we all discussed this plenty.
I move to accept the norms of engagement.
You have it. Yep. You moved to?
Yeah,
No, she seconded.
Okay, all right. So all those in favor of
We'll
adopting
ask for
these norms of
discussion.
engagement? Okay,
Okay.
what, everybody?
Well, I just want you to say it. You need to, is there further discussion?
Oh. Is there any further discussion?
Okay, actually, I would like to include something about absences. that
Something about,
People not showing up to meetings, so if you know you're not going to be present, let.
yes, I neglected to say that Candace, wrote me an email this
Okay.
afternoon. Yes.
So you should have.
Oh.
I should have said that at the
Yeah,
beginning.
because I texted her and asked her if she was coming.
Because of the board, I think I didn't do it in the right order. She had another commitment, but I can follow that up a little bit later on this agenda. Okay, so old business.
No. We have a motion on the table and there's been an amendment to the motion now.
That for all of us, if we know we are not gonna be able to attend the meeting, to let you know ahead of time.
So it would be an item 10
Yes.
is what you're proposing,
Yes.
that committee members advise.
I see. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm missing some of it.
Committee members advise chair.
Okay, so then on.
They will be absent. Is that
Of anticipated absence.
Of anticipated habits. That's good.
So can we get a motion to adopt the norms of engagement as amended?
Second.
Okay. Second.
Further discussion of the amended
Any further
motion?
discussion? Okay, all those in favor
Hearing none.
adopting the norms of engagement, thank you. I commend you for your holding up your hands before and being called on as we went through that. We'll give that to the board of directors as well. Okay, now we're in old business. Item B, committee work. So I thought Catherine could report on the database stuff and donor lists and what you found out about various.
All right, so I'm going to repeat some of what I've said already, but with some details, hopefully. And so on our process, we're talking about doing a feasibility study. So part of that is identifying who could be the major donors for our project and approaching them. But there is an art and a science about that. And that is helped with donor screening software, which are, it's a software, it's companies who do a lot of research of public records and essentially identify people who have a history of philanthropic endeavors. And they are scanned for their wealth, obviously, but also for their interest. What is their philanthropic motivation? What do they do? So it defines a profile of people, essentially. And so if it's somebody who is going to give purely to a library, you're not going to go talk to them about a community center, but you want to talk, for instance, the library aspect. So it helps design a speech, but also, most of all, it helps us evaluate the potential of that person to give to the project. So when we go after building a relationship, which I said, the first meetings are about that, building relationship with anybody who would be interested in helping us, is going for the ask. And the ask could be something in kind, but for other people, and the most people we're going to need to ask for, it's about a monetary contribution. So the donor search, donor screening aspect of things helps identify how much to ask for. You don't want to ask too much because the person is going to say no, and you don't want to ask too little because then you miss an opportunity. So this is kind of the unpleasant part of fundraising, I would say, but it's something that has to happen. And there were several, vendors that provide that service. I talked to a vendor, and when I mentioned, we're a small town of 1,500 people, and they say, oh, you're too small, we're gonna be too expensive for you, don't waste your time with us. But he recommended others, and Kate and I talked to Donor Search. And they, were very willing to explain, yes, they can help us and so forth. They were even willing to give us a free trial period. And we say, we're near ready, so hold on your horses. And this person has been very helpful and kind and open to communication, but a quote, for instance, we were given was $1,500 a year, and he said he would, consider a 3-year contract for $4,500. So just to give you an idea again of what amount of money we're talking about.
So 4,500 for 3 years.
For 3 years. And
How long is the free trial?
well,
Three
it's
weeks.
1 month, yeah, 3 weeks or 1
3
month.
weeks, I have my notes,
3
but-
weeks, and he even said that many people could log on at the same time. So, because what I suggested is that, well, we're such a small, project. Could you do custom reports instead of us buying into the system? You do the work and we pay you for that one report. So it would be a one-time cost. And he was reluctant, but eventually he conceded that they had done that in the past. So again, I feel it's a door that remains open, depending on how much we want to spend and so forth. If we have, 100 names to submit or something like that, it's something that they may do. Or if we say, let's go for the 3 weeks trial period, we can pull, but I'm not sure, for the trial period, chances are all the features are not gonna be available. So we
Okay, so
we
that's-
just get the whole
Okay,
thing.
so that's what.
So the donor screening is one, but it's going to be very important to have something like that, obviously. And then what I was going to lengths to talk about was what we call the partner management. And it's to keep track of everybody, all of us, and it helps us doing people management, who is doing what, including deadlines. So it's more of a project management type of system, but also all the donors, all those relationships we're trying to build. Like some people are going to be very important to keep in touch with. So it's like, who interacted with them last, what was talked about, and then donations, who participated in the various events, like all the events, all these things have to be tracked very precisely. So that's why, it's very important to understand the purpose of that and that it cannot be dispensed with. It's not something you can do with a spreadsheet, okay? So Little Green Light falls under that category, and Donor Perfect. And the rep from Donor Perfect has been emailing me constantly. It's like really trying to get the business. But he's same thing. It's another one who is in the $1,500 a year. And I just got an email, end of year sale, 20% off, And I'm like, I'm going to tell him, slow down, again, we're not ready. And by comparison, I know Barbara said Little Green Light was free, but that's not what I gleaned from the website. And for up to 2,500 inputs. So again, could be volunteer, donor, grant organization. So up to 2,500 such records, names or whatever we want to call them, it would be like $500 a year, which is not much, obviously much less than 1,500. So what do you get for the difference is obviously less integrations, but both of these software are integrated with donor screening. That's something they sell. They are integrated with other software. So for instance, they will be integrated with the communication software, which can either be Constant Contact or MailChimp, the cheaper version. And they also are integrated with, what's the accounting software now? The QuickBooks, so because QuickBooks is something that's going to have to be maintained, a donation, like the 501c3 can be audited and stuff like that. The records have to be there. And same thing, all the money has to be tracked so that we can follow our own progress reports. How much money did we raise? What was our objective for this month? So did we meet the targets for the donors and all these things? So it's all a lot of analytics that can come out of those systems and help guide us. Are we doing well, not well, and eventually at the end of the, feasibility study where we have contacted all our potential big donors, we can see how far we are, like way below targets, or no, we're doing better than expected. So that will be a big indication of how well we're doing. So integration, then there is the, differentiation as to how many logins you can have, like for one account, some cheap version of MailChimp will allow one user. So, that becomes the burden of one person when we are essentially a volunteer organization, and I would assume many tasks have to be shared. So there are a lot of details, and same thing for partner management. There is the idea of credit card integration. What a lot of nonprofit do is like donate online or things like that. So you need to have that integration with credit card payments, and again, going into your bank account, being accounted to in QuickBooks. So it's really a very complicated system. I mean, it seems complicated, but once you're into it, it's pretty obvious.
Do you have a recommendation at this point?
Well, I need to look at the donor screening, if there are others, or, what would be wise to do. And I wanted to talk to actually Liz Jenkins, but she has been undisposed recently. She has COVID. So she said she will talk to me next week or something.
The Midcoast Music Academy uses Little Green Light.
Yes, and
that's how Barbara knows it.
Yeah, and as several people know Little Green Light, so I think that would be a very good option. And I think the other one, Donor Perfect, is a bit too much of a luxury.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
Cadillac.
and Rhonda would be very willing. to work
Yes,
with Little
and
Green.
that's the key. I would be very happy to talk to both of them about their experience and what they feel is indispensable versus
Yeah,
just a
I'm
nice feature.
Very curious about her comment that it was free, because I
Well,
wouldn't
it could
expect
have
that.
been just like
Basic model.
Constant Contact at some point was free for nonprofit and stuff, and nothing is free anymore, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
And also depending on how many contacts you have in the database, some of them give you a freebie versus and so forth.
Right.
So, again, for the budget idea, if, that's why he was trying to say, give us an idea of the budget here, Constant Contact for the one we would need would be about, I would say $50 to $100 a month versus MailChimp, which would be fine with $45 a month. And again, in the communication software, which you can design templates either to ask for money, or you can send letters to say thank you. And they allow you to segment, again, market segmentation, so that you can differentiate the communications you have. And Constant Contact, MailChimp will limit you to 5 segments, which could be plenty, but again, we should sit down and figure out, what are potential segments we want to consider. Because, the standard version of the Constant Contact will allow, unlimited segmentation, for instance, or definitely more options. So it's like, what are our needs? We're going to have to discuss that.
Okay.
So that's it.
Marcia?
I had a COVID and flu shot yesterday afternoon and I'm feeling lousy. So I would like to excuse myself and I will carefully read the rest of the minutes for the rest of the meeting. If that's okay.
So we're probably only going to be another 10 minutes, so.
Well, that's all it is. I can- Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think I can sit here for another.
Okay.
hour.
Speak to you.
I'll just briefly talk about grant research. I already said it earlier. I have sent Candace all the information I had with foundations that we had collected. I think Catherine and I made a list of foundations. I've given her some more. I've given her the password to my Grant Watch account, which
Question, your Grant Watch account, is it again an expense?
it is.
So again, please.
I'll put the, yeah.
Document that.
Okay, and so she's working on developing a database and she's doing some research and she's made some inquiries to our legislators for ideas as well. So that's in progress. So let's move on to the case statement.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I took the structure that Sandy put together, this document, that I think we all had, and just went through it and started editing and wordsmithing I don't intend that you look at it right now, but take it with you. You know, I welcome any and all thoughts. You'll still see some holes in there, places where we haven't filled things in. I've tried to use standard terminology throughout, the same terms. Things like that, but you'll see. You'll see, like there's some question marks in here, I know, under our history that needs some fleshing out.
So where do we
But-
send comments?
You're welcome to send them to me. I'll be glad to consolidate them anyway and come up with a mergeable document when we're all done.
And I think Mark has looked at the,
My email, I think everybody, did we
yeah.
put it out? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
This is great. This is really good.
Yeah, you did a lot of work, thank you.
And I think everybody got a copy of the aerial views, and like I said, we have about 10 more different, I mean, they're not a lot different, but different angles and so on that Jeff did. Which I've now given to Xander Shaw, the architect that's gonna help us put something together, or give us a proposal anyway, to put something together. But it does give you, I thought the aerial view was good. We walked it the other day with Xander. He thought that he could get access to some of the engineering drawings for the septic system and some things like that, so he knew exactly where the leach field was and where all those things tied in.
We know that the as you're looking at this, the septic tank is over on this side and it has been pumped on a regular basis. But John says he doesn't have any, drawings of it. The leach
At the
field.
town office.
Yeah, I came to the town office. There's no, either digital or paper files with the septic system, but the leach field is where there's a slight bump, I guess, in the back, behind where the playground is. And I have the site plan, which I emailed Xander to tell him I had it, but not a digital copy. It's just a, paper copy. And I asked John about that tonight, and he said, I don't think there was a digital, and, he's not even sure there's a copy of the septic plan, but he's gonna look into it. Okay.
But there's one somewhere. It's a matter of getting to it.
Good call, though.
I tried to find it for my house, and, I think there was somebody in charge of it 20 years ago who may have lost the drawings.
If they were still at the school, they probably threw all that stuff away when they turned the building over.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It never was at the school, it was at the district, and they don't know where it is.
Yeah.
And
Say that again, Peg.
it was at the district,
Yeah,
kept those records, not
Yeah,
the.
but I don't think-
individual building.
John didn't think I could get it from
It
RSD.
has been tried and they weren't
Yeah.
able to find it.
That's what I remember at the Futures Committee, trying to get it back then. but-
And did you locate the well?
They did locate the well.
It's on the, it's on
No,
the,
I mean, you guys.
yeah, it's on the site plan. The well is on the site plan, but no
Okay.
septic. Yeah, so I have that. Okay, just two more items. I think we're gonna. Couple more items. I asked everybody to make a statement similar to what you did tonight. About the importance of the project and so that would be part. That could be incorporated into the case statement as testimonials. The kind of personal approach that Catherine talked about last time. I have three. I have my own. I have.
Oh, you want me to get?
If you have a copy, send it to me.
Okay.
I'm collecting.
And
And
did you want the list of the people?
the
as
list
well?
of people that the only reason I absolutely need lists, I don't want us to be duplicating our efforts. Thank you very much. If you have them on your computer and want to send them to me, then
Yeah, mine's a little handwritten, but I'll send it to you on my computer.
great. So
Email.
that's. I'll put this in the right folder. Yeah, all right, response. Okay. Okay. So, thank you, and just, if you don't have them tonight, please send them to me. And, just a little bit about the ambassador groups. I think we already know where we're at, and I wanted to kind of meld that in with new business. We did meet with an architect, Xander Shaw, three of us on Tuesday. And he has put together a proposal, which I can send to all of you. It's more money than I would have liked, but it looks like it's a very detailed proposal of a rendering and placing it on the site. And I will send it to all of you so you can review it. I think there are some places for adjustment that we might say, oh, we don't really need that now, or, you know, he's already given us a break as a nonprofit and in terms of his hourly costs. And he has a lot of details in there about what, his process. So I think you'll learn a lot from it. And then I think it's a time for a little negotiation with him. So I just want to tell you that he's very interested in the project. He's very interested in working with communities, likes that kind of work. He was the architect for the AIO build and has worked on other nonprofit projects. He also happened to work on the Owl's Head School project, which was nice to learn. And if you look at his resume, if you go onto his website, which I'll send you, you can see his resume. So I think it's worth looking at. I think if I understand all of you, it's essential that we have that for some kind of a three-dimensional piece for the ambassador groups.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sandy, because of the hour,
I think we should.
we need to, we're not giving enough detail, and because the meeting didn't start at 5, which I wish it had, because we should have gone through a lot of it earlier. So I'm just gonna ask you, what, is the next meeting gonna be at 5 or are we doing it at 6? I just need to know.
No, I think we really should go to 5. I think it's better for all of us. And I'm sorry it just happened with John.
The third Thursday.
Will we do the Thanksgiving?
Why do I do that all the time?
So it's gonna be on the 6th.
I am not sure of my schedule for that first week of December, so I am going to work with Jan on that meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I won't be here on the 6th.
You won't be there?
I have a granddaughter graduating on the 9th down in Florida.
Okay, so wait a minute. So Jan can't be there
If you can't be there.
and I'll be in Vermont, so
Maybe we should cancel December.
I think we should.
Yeah, I'm coming back on the
I think we
4th.
have enough committee work to do.
So no meeting in December.
No meeting in December.
What's
I
the
mean-
homework? What is the homework?
Go to the
Well, you're doing your
library.
homework. You're already doing your homework. And getting your list of the ambassador groups, and also Jan's gonna work, Jan and Kate and Marsha, as Kate's gonna also help with the case statement.
Yeah, anybody. That's
So do whatever you,
I've thought to do that.
okay,
As little or as much as you want to do it.
and I'm doing grant research with Candace. I think that's pretty much it for now.
So do we want to say the 4th of January, which would be the first Thursday in January
Yes.
for a planning meeting or for,
Yeah.
to plan for a meeting? 5?
Yeah,
Bye.
5 PM, so January.
Okay.
All right, I'll let Terry know.
The only other question I had, Sandy, is do we have an electronic version of this
I do,
document?
Yes.
Yes,
Because,
you want that?
well, the other thing I thought would be useful in addition to what we're asking Xander for would be like a little trifold. A little trifold brochure. And I think I could use some of this to make a trifold.
Oh. All right, I'll send it.
So if you've got it electronically, if it's manipulable, I don't know what format it's in. I
Yeah, I
can
don't
play
know.
with it.
But maybe Gabe would
Yeah, I mean, he might be willing to
help us.
share it since he has a vested interest in it.
Okay. Let's adjourn.
$7.59.
Okay, all in favor, let's go.